What is up, everybody? Welcome to a brand new episode of the Run Your Mouth podcast. I am here with Clint from Liberty Lockdown, who has actually done some homework on the Palantir topic. But Clint, we're just going to tease it. We're going to tease it. And we're going to cover a whole bunch of shit beforehand and hope that people stick around. But why don't you say hello, let people know what you're up to.
Clint Russell, host of Liberty Lockdown, at Liberty Lockpod on X, guy with the red hat that points at the camera. That's how they know me. And anyways, by the way, before we got started, Robbie was just going on this like super racist rant, and I don't know why he would do that, but he did. So I just thought you guys should know.
And also, we just did a crossover episode, so everybody, if you're not currently a listener to Liberty Lockdown, go check it out. Episode here is brought to you by YoKratom.com, and of course, come check me out on the porch. I am out there. I'm living that porch life, and if you want to bring some good vibes into your life, celebrate 4th of July weekend, I will be in Oklahoma City, Galveston, Texas. Fuck, now I forgot the name of it. But
Galveston.
Yeah, it's somewhere not that close to Dallas. Then Shreveport, Louisiana. That's all on porchtour.com with other dates as well. And then on Sunday, I will be at the Secret Group in Houston, Texas. You can find tickets on that website.
If you are a single woman, the place to be is porchtour.com.
Yes, everybody knows that. All right, so we are going to get into Palantir, which I'm fascinated by, and I really haven't done my homework on, so I'm happy that you did. So hopefully I can download some of that information and then regurgitate it as my own on other podcasts. But to start off, I do want to get into the latest from the Iran situation. I'm just going to give my short, basically, intuition at this time.
Sure.
My intuition is essentially, and I'm going off of what I've learned from both Scott Horton and from Kyle from the Libertarian Institute. But essentially, Iran didn't have much of an interest in actually having a bomb. They were looking to have the nuclear deterrent of basically having the capability of getting a bomb. And we are in the exact same place as where we were basically before Donald Trump decided to do these targeted strikes on the nuclear facilities. Except that in my head, we've, if anything, just incentivized Iran to actually go for it and showcase the fact that half measures don't work. So my intuition is essentially not only was what Donald Trump did not successful, I don't know to what extent there was, that he completely removed their nuclear capabilities, but they certainly walked away with, 60% enriched uranium, and potentially the intellectual capital on how to proceed with this. So my guess is not only did what Donald Trump not help, in my opinion, it probably made the situation worse. But before we proceed with some random articles, what's your snapshot on the Iran situation?
It's so hard to know. I agree with Kyle Anzalone and the Libertarian Institute and Scott Horton on the reason that they do it, or that they were doing it. The latent deterrent argument makes a lot of sense to me. But in terms of like actually what was done with those strikes, it's impossible to know. I mean, I think you and Dave actually talked about this, that like everybody has their own incentive to lie, like literally everybody, including the Iranians. So I have no reason to believe Trump, because he wants to be this big badass. He wants to be like, yeah, took them out. We took out thousands of their centrifuges. The Iranians have their own reason to be like, kind of keep it open, where they're not going to confirm either way. They don't want to look like bitches, like they just got dominated, but they also don't want to be like, well, you didn't touch us at all, so you better come and bomb us again. The Israelis are probably the ones that would have the incentive to say that, the strike didn't work. But at the same time, Netanyahu's hanging on by his teeth for his political life, and it makes him look like a badass that he got the American empire to intervene on Israel's behalf and take out the Iranian nuclear facilities. So he'll probably want to lie and say that they took them out, even if they didn't. So I guess long story short, I don't have a fucking clue. I don't have any idea what the condition is of their nuclear program, but I am totally convinced that Iran was not actually trying to create a nuclear weapon. I think that our intel agencies, including Tulsi Gabbard, who said so just a couple months ago, they hadn't made the political decision. I don't think that there was any evidence that they were actually trying to create a nuclear weapon. They were trying to use it as a bargaining chip because they were getting choked to death by the sanction regime, and they wanted to, just a quick reminder for people that don't know, one of the top negotiators, if not the top negotiator for the Iranians, said the week before the strikes that if you get rid of the sanctions, we will get rid of our nuclear program. / we will take it back down to 3%, as opposed to the 60%. That guy was killed in the middle of the night by the Israelis at 3 a.m. in the dead of night, along with his family. So yeah, I don't think that they had any interest in peace, and I don't think they give a shit about the nuclear program. Ultimately, I think that they want to topple Iran.
Well, my intuition, like I said, nobody actually knows, and these topics kind of come and go pretty quickly. So I don't have quite the expertise I have on these, like I did COVID, which stuck around for 2 years.
Right.
But my intuition is just we're not in any better place than we were, and maybe we made it worse, but we're going to see. Now, in terms of the argument that what happened was actually successful, it could be that the success was not in taking out the nuclear sites with the targeted strikes, but the badass move that Israel pulled when they went Walter White and killed a whole slew of the nuclear scientists at the exact same time. I don't know if you're familiar with the story. I think it was like 8 or 9 of them that
Yep.
they literally hit all of their homes at the exact same time so that they wouldn't have time to basically warn the other people and let them know, hey, the Israelis are offing us right now. So it could be that they did walk away with centrifuges and they did walk away with some enriched uranium, but at this time they don't actually have the intellect to move forward with the program because of targeted assassinations. But speaking to the point of that nobody knows, I don't know how many nuclear scientists actually live in Iran
Yeah,
or
who
how
knows?
hard it is to go the last mile. Now,
So I'll tell you one thing though, for sure. I wouldn't want to be a nuclear scientist in Iran like that. That would be scary as hell.
All right, but now speaking to Donald Trump is just absolutely bullshitting us. And I just made this joke that he seems to just be going off feelings where he goes, well, I don't feel that way. They'll tell him the intelligence agency said, that they weren't looking to develop a nuke. And he goes, well, I feel like they were. And I'm like, great, we got a president going off feelings. I thought that's why we vote against women. So, but here you've got Donald Trump once again letting us know that the missing enriched uranium, that it seems like everyone else acknowledges at a minimum that there is missing enriched uranium. Donald Trump is convinced that his operation was so successful that the enriched uranium no longer exists. And of course, he doesn't speak to any intelligence reports that confirm that. But here he is on the news letting you know it's totally decimated and you don't even have to worry about the enriched uranium. The video playing might be even less smooth than usual as I'm out here on the road and my Google slides were not working properly. So people in the chat, you can let me know if we have sound.
Do you think that the Iran regime hid some of the enriched uranium before the strikes?
No. You mean, did they take it out of the deep one? No.
Because you were pretty clear you can't have a weapon, you're going to have to come to the talk, something's going to happen.
I don't think they did. No, I think, first of all, it's very hard to do. It's very dangerous to do. It's very heavy, very, very heavy. It's a very hard thing to do. Plus, we didn't give them much notice because they didn't know we were coming until just, then. And nobody thought we'd go after that site because everybody said that site is impenetrable.
Because I saw reports that there were 400 kilograms, 800 pounds that they moved. Yeah. But I wonder if it's traceable. I mean, if they were to have moved
they didn't move anything.
They didn't move anything.
You know what they moved? Themselves. They were all trying to live. They didn't move anything.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
So Donald Trump is currently just walking the line of we totally destroyed their nuclear program and it's no longer even something that you have to consider. As Dave Smith said, that might be the best lie he's ever made because it might be what keeps us from continuing to support the Israeli cause of regime change. But amidst me standing on the sidelines trying to go, hey, I think this guy is lying, and the same as I think nobody actually knows at this time how much damage was done to the nuclear programs or whether or not they move centrifuges or continue to move forward. This, I think, will turn out to have been a total lie.
I think, if I had to bet on it, I'd give odds in your favor. I think that that's probably true. I'd say it's like it's like a minus 200 bet that, yeah, they probably didn't take out most of the centrifuges and certainly not the uranium and all that. But I just want to point out how unbelievably juvenile Trump's line of defense is. It's heavy. It's really, really heavy and really, really dangerous. So they couldn't have possibly moved it. They were just getting themselves out of there. Well, if they were getting themselves out of there, they knew that you were coming. Because why would they get themselves out of there otherwise? So if they knew that you were coming, then that means that they would have the incentive, if they had any amount of time necessary to get the very heavy enriched uranium out of there too. So I don't know what the answer is, but I think that's about as bullshit as it gets. That it's too heavy and it's too dangerous to move, as if like people that have thousands of centrifuges that are enriching uranium don't know how to get rid of, how to move it. Like, it's absurd.
And then it also just has that self-contradictory claim that if this regime was diabolical and the one thing that they wanted to do was to get nuclear weapons, so if they thought that you were coming, because he had said in an early interview that he seemed to make the claim that they knew, and the reason why they weren't going to be down there was because they knew that it was going to be destroyed. But that's also kind of contradictory, because you would think if this is this evil, diabolical regime, you're telling me that they're not going to send the construction workers down there to preserve their holy grail, which is this nuclear warhead that they want just so that they can destroy Israel. So it does seem to be somewhat contradictory.
Yeah.
All right. Now, amidst the claims of, hey, the Iranians are just done with this. So first is, the Iranian leader crawled out and said they delivered a hand slap to America's face. Of course, we no longer have to fight these people, but there might be a secondary war where we fight over who actually won this war. And then we also have, there was an intelligence briefing where senators walked out and said, hey, it's not so clear that we completely thwarted the nuclear threat. So I'm going to read this. This is from the Wall Street Journal. Senator Lindsey Graham said facilities were obliterated today, but you can reconstitute. I don't want people to think the site was severely damaged or obliterated. It was, but I don't want people to think the problem is over, because it's not. Speaking to your and Dave Smith's point, he's got the obvious incentive to lie, because Lindsey always wants more war.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if you're ever taking intel reports from Lindsey Graham seriously, you need to immediately check yourself into a neoconservative insane asylum. That's like John Bolton type of schooling. But yeah, I mean, if I had to guess, I'd say that there was very significant damage done to the nuclear program. But as to it being obliterated, which is, Trump speak for we hit it, I think that that's total nonsense. These are buried under mountains, and allegedly what they did is they went through a ventilation shaft. So they blew the top off the ventilation shaft with the first bomb, and then all of the remaining bombs just hit the hole where the ventilation shaft was, which allowed them to, get deep into the earth and blow up the entire thousands of their centrifuges. I just don't buy it. Maybe it's true, but I would say, I mean, especially after they framed it like it was some sort of Top Gun operation from the Top Gun remake, I'm like, this just all sounds like a lie to me. But I totally agree with Dave's assessment that I'm going to accept this lie because I don't want to go to war with Iran. So
yeah, I don't even know if the lie of the sites being decimated is inaccurate, as much as we already know, or at least it's been pretty widely reported, that 800 pounds of enriched uranium are hidden amidst the country. The idea that a single centrifuge wasn't moved, or that a single scientist doesn't still exist who can then get it over the last hump, and just to square the circle of they're 14 days away from having a bomb to, oh, now they're years away. I just don't believe that storyline. As to whether or not these nuclear sites were damaged, fine. They were clearly damaged. Were they completely destroyed? Maybe they were even completely destroyed. But the idea that Iran no longer has an interest anymore because Donald Trump spanked them and taught them a lesson.
It's all nonsense.
Yeah. All right. So then this was just one more senator. Also, Senator Chris Murphy from Connecticut said the allegations that we have obliterated their program just don't seem to stand up to reason. Once again, he's a Democrat, might just be looking to make Trump look bad. But this was the reporting, at least from the intelligence briefing amongst the Senate. I think I missed. Like I said, I'm on the road. There was a video of Rand Paul that I wanted to play, which was essentially, I thought Rand Paul had a very balanced opinion, which maybe we'll end up playing the video later because I just put it in the wrong order. But he was saying, hey, if these targeted strikes worked and that's the end of it, then Trump's a hero, and this was this was a brilliant military operation. But at the moment, nobody's been down to their sites, and nobody actually knows. And hopefully this doesn't continue to escalate, which I will say I'm fine with that opinion and stance.
Yeah, I mean, this is actually why I like Thomas Massie more than Rand, because like Rand is obviously playing the game. You know, he's filleting Trump with that description, you know, just so heroic. But here's the truth. Like, say he did take out the nuclear program. Then what incentive does that give to every other country, not just in the Middle East, but all over the world? The incentive is obvious. Get nukes. Get nukes as fast as possible, because otherwise you're not even allowed to have a civilian nuclear program, because that was the negotiating thing. They were like, we're not even going to let you have 3%. You can't even have a nuclear power plant. Like, no. So unless you have nuclear weapons on Earth at this point, you are not a sovereign country. And it's like, this is what makes me so mad about this. Like, even setting Iran aside, is that I genuinely believe that nuclear weapons are probably the thing most likely to obliterate humanity, at least in the near term. And it makes me so mad whenever you have, you know, neocon warmongering interventionist policies that incentivize really bad people to create really bad weapons all over the world. And that's what they just did. And just juxtapose the Iranian treatment versus the North Korean treatment. Sure, the North Koreans get sanctioned into oblivion, but they don't get bombed. They don't get invaded. And it's because they have nukes. And it's like, I don't want to live in that world where the only way you don't get bombed by Israel or America or NATO is if you're a nuclear power. It's like, it's fucked up. That's a terrible dynamic to create. And from Libya to Iraq to Iran to North Korea, that's the lesson that they've given the world.
I was joking on Twitter that Iran basically needs some Western marketers to start talking about how they're just trying to be green and that they're trying to reduce their carbon emissions, and that's why they don't want to rely on their oil anymore. They want to be part of the efforts for.
This is part of our Green New Deal, Habibi. Green New Deal, nuclear.
All right. So amidst, you know what? Let's quickly plug another sponsor, which is Sheath.com. I am a loyal wearer of Sheath.com.
Me too.
I still have my original pairs. Why don't you let the Run Your Mouth listeners how great the Sheath are for your giant penis and balls?
They are good. And God, I wish my penis was as big as my balls. But setting that aside, yeah, they're legitimately the best pair of boxer briefs I've ever owned. Sheath obviously ought to sponsor Liberty Lockdown again, because they only did it once, but they sent me the samples and they kick ass. I never even bothered trying to put my dick in the separate pouch. Sorry, I don't know if I should be this graphic, but you can do that if you got a big old hog and you need to separate your junk. I still don't know why you would need to do that, but they are really, really good boxer briefs, for real.
There you go. Listen, I swear by them, particularly in hot summer climates and weather. You don't want to be dealing with that ball sweat, or if you got fat thighs like me, you try and wear your boxers one day, it's all just rubbing together. You end up with the friction burns, and nobody likes that. You know, if you're pulling off, if you get the opportunity to pull your pants off, you don't want rug burn between your legs. So sheathunderwear.com, use promo code RYM, you get yourself 20% off the greatest underwear that's ever graced the balls of man. All right, so now just turning gears to what's been going on over in the Ukraine. So Putin theft of $300 billion in frozen assets, a price worth paying to break West's grip on global finance. This was an article on Zero Hedge. And I pointed this out. I mean, there were just obvious stupidities to the Ukraine war. Two of them were, one, we didn't exactly want China being more aligned with Russia. So this war was not a win, because China did not get our back in trying to basically team up on Russia. And two is everyone was using our financial systems and basically, you know, throwing Russia out of, I think it's the SWIFT system was the system. Yep. You know, people holding our currency allows us to inflate more and rob other countries of their wealth, as opposed to just robbing us of our wealth. It was like we just had all these people playing in our casino and we were winning with that. So what was the reason of basically making it more difficult for people to have their financial transactions through our monetary system, which is to our benefit, particularly if you're going on this chaotic run of let's increase our spending by $3 trillion. And so now one of the things that's been being threatened for a long time was essentially the assets that Russia had in other banks being seized to basically fund the war. I believe it was in banks. It might be in treasuries, but I think it was in other banks. And now Putin's just saying, hey, just take that $300 billion because we're going to make it back, when everyone else realizes they don't want to have money in your systems, and we end up with more localized payment processing systems.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit of a bluff and bluster type of deal. Like, obviously $300 billion to the Russians is a shit ton of money. But I think his point is well made and well taken, that essentially what he's saying is, well, the whole reason that the world uses the US dollar is because it's the most reliable, allegedly. Um, and you're demonstrating that if you don't go along with, the neoliberal world order, that money is not safe, that you can just seize it, which is what they did after they invaded Ukraine. So I think he's totally right that it's going to ultimately, expedite the rest of the world looking for different, not just different currencies, but also different economic rails, like getting off of SWIFT and things of that nature. So it's a huge risk, and I think really dumb and really short-sighted. And I think this is why you're seeing Bitcoin explode and everybody else start to reallocate their resources into different currencies.
All right, so next risk is, this was kind of, I really only looked at the headline of this one, and it's New York Times. I never really take the reporting all that seriously, except to see what mainstream is looking to report. Kyle's prediction was essentially the mineral deal. We were never going to see $1 from it, and it was just basically a way of Trump selling us, the American people and the American firsters, a way to remain in the war. There is an ongoing problem of that as this war continues, Putin's got the ability to potentially take the territories that Trump was hoping we would end up, cultivating and mining resources from. So this was just a headline. Russia seizes key lithium field and challenges for U.S.-Ukraine mineral deals, which is a little bit more just tea leaves in the direction of the mineral deals is not going to actually be profitable to the United States. Clint, before I go to the next random article here, any thoughts on that?
Well, I just one addition to what you said there is that the UK had already taken the mineral rights.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
Yeah. So like they had just signed like a month before that real big showdown slap fest between JD Vance and Vladimir Zelensky. He had already gone to the UK and signed a big mineral rights deal with them. So I think this dude is such a fucking grifter scumbag that he was going around selling the same mineral rights to a bunch of different nations, kind of like how the British offered the land of Palestine to a whole bunch of different different people during World War I. I think that's what we were witnessing with this too. So.
All right, and then the last one is, this was also from Zero Hedge, but Russian military instructs China how to beat U.S. and NATO with the NATO weapons. Now, I just don't get all that worked up about us going to war with Russia and China, because I don't understand how that doesn't just escalate to nuclear war, and perhaps they just continue to play the games where the only fights are essentially through proxy countries. But if you want to buy into the idea that we're at war with these countries, or where we will end up fighting with these countries. So one of the ideas, or at least I think amongst the war hawks, is that we've bogged down Russia and we've ruined their ability to potentially fight more wars because of all the soldiers that have died and because of all the military capital that has been used up in the Ukraine war. But the flip side of that is that Russia has had a good look at terms of some of the technology and other items that we're using to fight them, which means that information is now being shared with enemies as well.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely true. Also, it's despite the fact that it does cost them a lot of money and a decent amount of casualties from soldiers, it does also give them like real battlefield data, not just on what we have, but also on what they thought that they have and what works, what doesn't. I mean, you have to imagine that their advancements that they're making because of the nature of the war that they're in when it comes to drone warfare is probably leaps and bounds better than America's technology in that arena right now, just out of necessity. Like they have to get really good at it really fast. So I think that it's a mistake on multiple levels, unfortunately, which is not surprising because that's every foreign endeavor seems to be that.
And then just last article on this topic, but it was reported, this is also from the Wall Street Journal, but I saw it all over the internet, that U.S. halts key weapons for Ukraine, a new sign of weakening support for Kiev. It's very hard to tell what the hell Donald Trump is doing at any point in time. This could be that he's trying to repressure Zelensky into actually trying to have a peace deal. That didn't seem to work the first time around, or he pressured him to a minerals deal. But now, I guess the latest news is that Donald Trump is not sending over all of the promised military equipment, which would seem to just suggest that maybe he's actually trying to repressure Zelensky. But this is new news, so
yeah, I think it's actually more significant than that. I think that our stockpiles, because of the 12-day war between Iran and Israel, and the incredible barrage of missiles that were sent from Iran towards Israel, and all of the interceptor missiles that were fired from both Israel, which we provide them, as well as Western assets, our ships and everything else. I think that we ran through our stockpile. Like, there's reports out that said that we're very, very low in terms of our stockpile of missiles, and therefore, like, basically, if we want to continue to fund all of these proxy wars, we don't have it. Like, we can't do it. So I think that when it comes, push comes to shove, who are we going to arm up? Is it going to be Israel, or is it going to be Ukraine? Well, I think we all know the answer to that. So that's why Ukraine is being left in the lurch, is because of the multiple proxy wars.
Yeah, it does seem like they kind of are the two children fighting for resources. All right, we're going to totally switch gears here. I don't know if you saw this video, but I think it's worth a play and a mention. Please, everyone, let me know if we've got sound. Like I said, I'm running this a little bit differently than usual, but should play. Let's give this a listen.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Secretary Kennedy, for being with us today. I want to begin by commending you for the work your department and the administration has done to make improvements in the health of the American people and to be responsible stewards of our tax dollars.
A little boring start. I probably could have started this further along.
Our administration mismanagement across the department, but I'm particularly concerned about the damage inflicted to public trust in our health institutions. Unsurprisingly, when faced with sweeping mandates, the American public responded with skepticism and mistrust. I know you've already taken steps to restore public trust in our health institutions. Do you see those as being successful in the near future, or over what timeline?
We're going to restore public trust, Congressman, Vice Chairman, by restoring truth. We're going to tell the truth to the American people, and we're going to use evidence-based science, gold standard science. As I said, we're going to use replication. If I can take a minute just to respond to something that Congressman Pallone said, and I'll address you, Congressman Pallone. 15 years ago, you and I met. You were at that time a champion for people who had suffered injuries from vaccines. You were very adamant about it. You were the leading member of Congress on that issue. Since then, you've accepted $2 million from pharmaceutical companies in contribution, more than any other member of this committee. And your enthusiasm for supporting the old ACIP committee, which was completely rife and pervasive with pharmaceutical conflicts, seems to be an outcome of those contributions.
Mr. Chairman, point of order. Point of order.
The chair recognizes
Point of order. The
Dr.
gentleman is impugning the reputation of a member of Congress.
So we can just stop there for a second. I'm personally vaccine agnostic. I'm also a little bit agnostic on RFK Jr. in general. But I do think that it is very fair to point out where people are taking money from, and if members of Congress do have a conflict of interest. And we will see the absolute uproar over the claims being made of, hey guys, we're all on the same team here, we're not allowed to say these things, and RFK walking it back. But before we play the walk back, what are your feelings about broadcasting to the United States and the American public whether or not people in Congress are actually representing your interest, or if they've taken very large sums from particular donor groups?
Well, of course, man. I mean, I think it was, I don't know if it was George Carlin or some other comedian that was talking about they ought to have NASCAR jackets with all of their sponsors and just sit there, advertising who they're actually working for. But I thought, that claim by RFK Jr. seems very believable, particularly given that he knew him well. He knew him 15 years ago, and he was a big advocate for this cause. And suddenly he's taken $2 million from, pharma, and now he's not. It's like, yeah, those are the things that we ought to know. Absolutely. So I'm appreciative of it. I mean, I was very pro RFK Jr. coming into this administration. Since then, instead of focusing on the COVID era, he seems most dedicated to expunging any forms of anti-Semitism from college campuses and a bunch of other bullshit that doesn't matter. So I'm disappointed with what his focus has been on and some of his rhetoric, but I'm still rooting for the guy, and I still think that like we need big, revolutionary changes in this arena. So I hope he can deliver on it. Did I ever tell you that I was this close from moving to DC and being his spokesperson?
No, that's a wild job, and I never heard this story at all.
Yeah, I went through multi-month process. I wasn't going to be his spokesperson. I was going to be his second in command's communications director. But that was like I went through the application process. It was all greenlit, all approved, and then the guy that I was going to work for under
Watchtower Gang.
No. This is the guy that I was going to work for under RFK Jr. He didn't get the call. So like he had a whole team of 12 people. We were all ready to go. So I guess it's a silver lining in that not happening is that, now I get to tell the truth about RFK Jr. and his focus on anti-Semitism and all that bullshit, because having a message for the guy would have been tough. So I'd be like, what are we doing? Why are we talking about this?
Firstly, that's I guess you lucked out, because it sounds to me like you were more passionate about going after the COVID tyranny, and he's changed course. And some of the health claims might work out to be great. Some of these things might all turn out to be true. Like I said, I'm kind of agnostic, but particularly here, I think if you're in Congress and you're questioning somebody and you're taking a particular perspective, and you've taken a lot of money from a group that would have a financial incentive of you being on the floor and basically just acting as their lawyer and sharing that company's perspective, I think that is entirely fair game. So let's watch the reaction that even gets RFK to just walk it back.
Congress.
Stop the clock.
Can you stop the clock for a second? Can you state the point of order?
Yeah.
What's up with that obvious
It was
student address?
impugning Mr. Palone's
Mr. Chairman, I didn't hear it. Did the
Oh,
gentleman?
you weren't
That's
paying
fun. That's funny too, by the way. He has to admit, I wasn't even listening.
attention. That's why.
Well, it's hard to pay attention here when we're not getting any responses.
Okay,
My
okay.
understanding now is that the secretary said something about me taking money from pharmaceuticals. Is that what he said?
The secretary implied that Mr. Palone would not fight for vaccine victims because he took money from the pharmaceutical industry. He
Again,
needs to take back those words.
he
Okay,
needs to-
okay,
I
here
would
we go,
ask
here
the
we go,
words
here
be
we go.
taken down.
This, Mr. Secretary, this is a valid point of order, I'm told. So I'd ask you if you would please take back those words.
They're retracted.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary.
It's also,
Now-
by the way, cartoonish. You already said it. It was already said. What does it matter to go, oh yeah, I retract it? Sure. You've already said it. And also, I'd like to know why that's against the decorum to point out if somebody's grilling you on something and they've taken money for it.
I have no idea why it's against decorum, and I also might add that the reason you expunge words from the record in court is because then when the jury goes and they deliberate, then when they get the transcripts, those words won't be there anymore. That's the logic behind it. But there's no fucking jury. They're not going to have deliberation where they get to go back and reconsider whether or not these claims were valid. So it's all bizarre. It's just bizarre. And I understand. I mean, RFK Jr. probably just said, okay, I retract because he wants to move on. But I would have loved for him to just put his foot in the ground and be like, well, you took $2 million. Did I lie? Did I make anything up? All right, then why would I retract it? That would be the boss way to handle it, but whatever.
I'm also going to guess that it's not against the decorum, and he just pulled that legal move of going, yeah, apparently that's a valid point of order. Cool. Can you validate that? Is that actually true? Why is that the rule that I'm not allowed to point out if someone's specifically advocating for a private interest that they took money from?
Yeah.
So I think that this might be a change in topic, or Rand Paul might say something similar, but in regards to the military-industrial complex, and that there should be more transparency about who's taken money from the private sector and is advocating basically for decisions that would create profits for those industries. But I thought, and this kind of goes back to our Thomas Massey conversation, I thought that it was very fair what Thomas Massie was trying to do with the, I think it was the War Powers Act, which was essentially that Congress is supposed to declare war, and that what Donald Trump did was illegal because there was no inherent emergency. And apparently when they've been thwarting the rule of that Congress needs to declare war, they're at least supposed to brief Congress about military strikes, and Donald Trump didn't even do that. Now, a lot of people like to point out, hey, this is ridiculous because no other president has been held to this standard of having to go before Congress. I guess that's been somewhat argued that they've at least let Congress know about the military actions, which Donald Trump did not do. But from my understanding, it's pretty clear Congress is supposed to declare war. I think it's been a problem in this country that Congress has not. And so to criticize somebody who goes, hey, this has been a disaster that we've just been ignoring the fact that this is supposed to be a role of Congress. Let's retake back this power in Congress so that we don't continue to just be going through these disastrous wars. The fact that they wouldn't even put that on the floor on a vote, or that other people basically said that that was inaccurate. I mean, Mike Johnson went so far as to say that that's actually not constitutional. I don't know how much of this you followed, but I thought all of that was outrageous, and once again spoke to Thomas Massie being the only reasonable voice in all of government.
Well, and as a consequence of Congress abdicating their duties in this arena, you now have us on the internet arguing with imbeciles as to whether or not the dropping of dozens of 20,000-pound bombs on a foreign country is war or not. That's how fucked up we are at this point. That, like, that's a genuine argument that I had countless times with idiots on the internet in the MAGA world that are like, that's not a war. It's only a war if, I don't know, boots are on the ground or something. So I guess theoretically we can launch ICBMs at other nations, and that's also not war because we don't have boots on the ground. It's all super dangerous. And yes, I completely agree that Congress ought to have war-making powers, and they ought to be forced to do their fucking jobs. And the whole reason that they don't is because they don't want to have that. They don't want to have that on their record, because then they would actually be held to account for it. So it's very disappointing on all fronts, and I'm disappointed in Trump too. I think that, this is where I get real Nick Fuentes-y about, like, the control of our government and the way, particularly given that, Trump came out, I think it was the morning after he had ordered Netanyahu to stand down, essentially, and Netanyahu told him to shove it. He said, we already have these planes en route to Iran. We're going to drop this last payload. Fuck off, essentially. And then Trump does his presser in the morning, and he's like, these people don't know what the fuck they're doing. And he gets really mad. And then, like, 24 hours later, if not less, he's tweeting out going, drop the charges against Bibi. He's innocent. This is a witch hunt. And I'm like, I know Dave had a very, I guess, soft read of that he's just trying to, like, that's the only reason that Netanyahu continues the war, and therefore that's why Trump wants him to get those charges dropped. I'm going the more nefarious path of, like, maybe this dude really has compromise on Trump, and he just has to do whatever the fuck he tells him to do, because I just don't believe for a second that Trump swings within 24 hours from these people don't know what the fuck they're doing, I'm very upset with Israel, to drop the charges against Netanyahu. This guy's a hero. He's the only reason that we're avoiding a world war, and blah, blah, blah. It's like that pivot is so dramatic. I don't know how people look at that and don't go, like, what is actually happening here?
It was also, a lot of people suspected that Donald Trump did not know ahead of time that Israel was going to strike at Iran, and that it was a save face after he did it. And with anybody else, if they pulled that shit with Donald Trump, he would be on the news the next day going, we are done with them. I would have solved this problem. And they just created their own mess, and we are done with this country. We're breaking up. So, yeah, Israel, and what was so odd with the Netanyahu thing was he was the first to throw Donald Trump under the bus when he was claiming that he won the election. And then after he got shot at, Donald Trump was happy to host him down at Mar-a-Lago, and then seemed to flip tune to being completely pro-Israel. All right, here is Rand Paul responding to Mike Johnson, essentially saying that the War Powers Act would be non-constitutional. Let's give it a listen.
Speaker Johnson said this morning that the War Powers Act may not be constitutional. Johnson or Mike Johnson? Oh, Speaker Johnson. I thought you said Peter Johnson. Who's Peter Johnson? Speaker Johnson. What is constitutional is what is written in the Constitution, and it says only Congress. Congress has the exclusive right, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 11, to declare war. So if he wants to talk about the Constitution, he should read it, and then if he wants to discuss with us why he thinks that Congress shouldn't be involved with this, the Federalist Papers were very clear. Madison wrote that the executive branch is the branch of government most prone to war, and for the Constitution, with studied care, vested that power in the legislature. This was a big discussion among the founding fathers. They were tired of chronically being at war. They knew that Europe was always fighting each other. England was always fighting France. You had 100-year wars. You had 40-year wars. We didn't want that. We wanted to make war less easy to happen, so we gave that power to Congress. Now, they've been ignoring that, but I think the Speaker needs to review the Constitution, and I think there's a lot of evidence that the founding fathers did not want presidents to unilaterally go to war.
All right. All right. And then the last slide I had, which we will not get into because you and I just did an entire episode on this on Liberty Lockdown. But for those that are interested in hearing our opinion about Donald Trump going against Thomas Massie and the potential of Elon Musk backing Thomas Massie or potentially creating another party, why don't you let them know where they can find your podcast?
Yeah, it's just Liberty Lockdown on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, Rumble, everywhere else. So check that out. It'll be out at noon tomorrow, and it's a banger, as always.
Sick. And then before we get into the Palantir talk, let's just plug the last sponsor of today's episode, which is PhoenixAmmo.com. I need to start picking up bags of bullets and sending these to the, because fans, they bring me shooting, which is awesome, because my shot's gotten a lot better over the year. I did not grow up with guns. I'm not one of these cool people that had a dad who took them hunting or who was very into having guns in the house. So I've been very fortunate that fans, they will take me shooting. The other day, I got to go shooting with some fans out in Myrtle Beach. And dude, they had some crazy guns and it was a good time. And I got to start knowing ahead of time when I'm going shooting and just going to Phoenix Ammo and sending a bag of bullets ahead of time. So I'm not just mooching off of people and shooting up all their bullets. But for all you people out there, if you're living in states where it's legal, I think bullets are legal everywhere. But if you're a responsible adult and you're looking for ammo from people that will not support the deep state or sell to the government, which is how you know that it's actually quality goods, you go to PhoenixAmmo.com. You can pick yourself up a bag of bullets.
When you're running low, the only place to go is PhoenixAmmo.com.
There you go. That's a good rhyme. All right. So now Palantir. I am fascinated. It's making the rounds. People want to say this is the AI tech revolution of CIA-funded Peter Thiel. It's the PayPal mafia that got Donald Trump into office so that I guess they can start using AI technology to track all of our behavior and blah, 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 blah. I know nothing about it. You actually did a deep dive. Why don't you give us the scoop? Tell us what you've learned.
Sure. So 1998, PayPal's created. Elon Musk, Peter Thiel, a couple other guys, they're PayPal mafia. They hit it off. They basically crush it. They become the primary pay rail for internet transactions. By 2003, Peter Thiel cashes out of PayPal with about $50 million, and he parlays that. He takes $30 million and he pours it into this idea called Palantir, and a company called Palantir, and he partners on it with his college roommate at Stanford Law, Alex Karp, who's a total psychopath. But we'll get into him in a second. So he puts in $30 million to found Palantir. He hires his buddy to be the CEO, and there's a minority stake in the founding of Palantir that people ought to know about, which is what ought to raise an eyebrow if you're a libertarian, which is InQubtel, which is the CIA's venture capital firm. So despite the fact that Thiel puts in $30 million and they only put in $2 million, they're also responsible for all of the contacts that he has, including all of his relationships with the government. And even if you think that, $2 million can't make that much of a difference, well, for the next, 7 or 8 years of Palantir's existence, they don't do anything except get paid by the federal government because all of their contracts are with the feds. So they are just whole cloth a military industrial complex, state-sponsored, CIA-backed enterprise. That's what they are. That's their origin story. Maybe they're not totally that today because they've become a much bigger company and their technology is being used in a lot of private industry. But in terms of its origin story, that's what it was, and I think to a large extent that's still what it is. So, anyways, Alex Karp is like this super paranoid. I don't even know if he's like practicing Jewish, but he is Jewish, and he's just obsessed with like the worldview that we all had after 9/11. Like he seems to have just immense paranoia. Like we're going to get hit by these, Islamic terrorists at any turn, and the West is the best. And he overtly, including Palantir, they tweeted out right after the attacks of October 7th that sometimes the bad guys got to get killed. We stand with Israel, some shit like that, which people can look it up.
And what are you going on to say that this guy is completely obsessed with Islamic terrorism and preventing it? Is that because of a mission statement, because of writings he made, speeches he gave? How do you diagnose that obsession?
Yeah, well, because of my preparation for the episode that I did on Liberty Lockdown, which people can check out, I watched hours of this guy talking, like hours and hours and hours and hours. And I came away convinced that this dude is like just deeply paranoid. Like he talks about it openly. And I play the clips on Liberty Lockdown. So when people watch the episode, they'll see that I'm not making it up. I don't remember the exact quotes, but essentially like he seems to be frozen in 2002-3, like that's his worldview. Which like I wouldn't care if it weren't for the fact that he's got this entire arsenal of artificial intelligence programs that allow for surveillance technology, which creates basically a panopticon technocrat, hellscape. And he also has the money and resources and power and government contracts to do so, to implement it. So yeah, he's a very concerning guy, like just very, very deeply concerning. And then Thiel, who's obsessed with life extension, but he's allegedly a libertarian, but he's making a fortune off Palantir and its relationship with the government. He's basically a glorified, defense contractor, even more so than Elon Musk, in my opinion. And I just don't get a good feel from either of these guys. In fact, there was an interview earlier last week. I think it was like Russ Duthought or whatever his name is from the New York Times is sitting down with Peter Thiel, and I watched that whole interview too. And it's about an hour. And there's this moment where they're talking about AI and they're talking about, technological innovation and how important it is, which I tend to agree. I think that technology, broadly speaking, has been a benefit to humanity. But this New York Times reporter asks him explicitly, he says, do you want humanity to survive? And Peter Thiel takes, I'm not bullshitting, like 20 seconds of hemming and hawing before he says yes. Like, he's like, well, and I'm like, dude, the answer needs to be yes. Like, what is happening here? So he's this is the word I forgot when we were doing the show. He's a transhumanist, but he's a transhumanist to the extreme where if humanity's needs get in the way of technological advancement, he is fully ready to get rid of human beings. And I don't know about you.
He just sees technology as the next stage of kind of the evolution.
Exactly.
Of maybe either consciousness or just whatever's supposed to be on this planet. So,
right.
Let's just go with total theoretical here. If there was a finite, like almost the Matrixy thing, if there was a finite amount of electricity and he could keep the computer going or your village going, he would go, it's more important to keep the AI computer going.
100%. I have no doubt that's how he perceives things.
How do you even come to that conclusion? What is the worldview of that the technology continuing is like, because now you're against human survival. It's not even a human survival instinct. It's like either I hate to be Alex Jonesy, but it's like you got some demon worship or you've got some different kind of agenda of what's supposed to continue.
At its core, humanity, and really, humans in particular, have a deeply ingrained, almost unavoidable desire for survival. Like that's the reason we exist. That's the reason that we procreate, is like the belief in continuing on through our progeny. So to get rid of that instinct is something truly concerning.
But what's so weird about it is that like there's almost a nihilism towards human existence, but an
Yes.
importance to technological existence.
Yes.
And that seems so contradictory, because like if you're already going to buy into, I guess there's some sort of a reason for something to continue to exist, which even that you got to have to, you know what I mean? Like, so
Right.
he's valuing the continuous existence of something, but he sees the technological existence as being more important than the human existence. I guess I wish he was here to pose the question to, because I wonder what the root philosophy is there to come to that conclusion.
I would love to ask him too. I don't understand. I mean, it's so foreign to my own worldview that like human beings are what matter to me. So, you know, I just to kind of steelman it, I guess I could say from a theoretical vantage point, I could understand like a belief that humanity gives rise to technology, which ultimately, you know, nullifies our utility. Like I could even make that argument that like that's probably true, that we will create the technology which ultimately replaces us. But like to root for it is fucking crazy. Like that's a really sick worldview. So anyways, point being, you know, with Alex Karp and his like wild-eyed neoconservatism, and then Thiel with his wild-eyed you know, technocracy / transhumanist worldview, it's just a 1-2 punch of really concerning shit.
So to recap the concerning variables, it's essentially CIA backed from the beginning with, you know, basically servicing the military, or at least the criminal policing side of the United States government. And both of the people seem to have bad worldviews. One being a transhumanist, the other one being some neocon. Hey, if we're not aggressive towards policing Islamic people, eventually they're going to kill us off. All right.
Yeah, and just to reiterate, like Alex Karp in particular, like he's like Laura Loomer, you know, like where there's nothing scarier to Laura Loomer than a Muslim. Like there's nothing scarier, and there's nothing more dangerous.
Face. There is the mirror.
Well, to her, I mean, not to the rest of us.
There's this shit. I need another surgery so that people don't realize I'm a dude, which is a joke. Don't sue me. It's a stupid joke. I think you're beautiful. My Jewish mom would love you. Let's go on a date sometime. Please don't sue me.
Yes, your people are litigious. It's true. But anyways, yeah. So Alex Karp is like, on top of that, he's also responsible for, you know, selling off these contracts to the Israelis, which are being utilized right now in Gaza. And what these AI programs do, Foundry, I think, is the primary one, but also the kill chain. Essentially, what they do is they take in battlefield data in real time, and instead of having a human analyst, which is like what we used to do, you'd have some guy sitting behind a computer that's like being fed ground reports from soldiers or whatever, and then trying to assess things based off of satellite data or whatever else. It's like that's all replaced. Like this is Foundry, and this is the kill chain. They take in all of that data, and then they greenlight based off of facial recognition software as to who is a valid target and who isn't. And even according to them, which is obviously a lie because they're going to overestimate, they say that their accuracy is 90%. So that means that 1 out of 10 people that the Israelis have been killing in Gaza is totally innocent. I think that the numbers are way higher, and that's not even including collateral damage. So it is like full technocrat decision making on who lives and dies, which is like that's Black Mirror. That's like the highest level of our paranoia as to where all of this stuff is headed. And Palantir is the tip of the spear when it comes to that technology, and it's not theoretical. It's happening right now.
All right, so can you tell me more about, I guess, what the company even does? Because there is some civilian usage, and I guess it's just kind of AI efficiency. So maybe you could make the argument that Israel basically ordered the program. That's not necessarily their agenda. But what is the, I guess it's a two-part question of one, on paper, what is their pitch of what their company does? And then two is what is the United States contracting them for, which obviously I'm sure some of that we don't know. And then three is what is your concern for the Palantir implementation by United States government.
So on the private level, for non-government or military contractor shit, I think that there is real utility with what they provide. Essentially, they are just a really high level database management company that takes in all of the data from these companies that are like, built and blossomed in the 1980s or the 1990s, and they're just really behind technologically. And Palantir comes in and they go, we're going to give you an IT guy. And they actually put an IT guy in their offices. So like it's very invasive or immersive. And then they have them take in all of the data from all of their databases, and then they run it through Foundry or one of their AI programs to try and establish like, all right, they sit down and they talk to the CEO or whoever the top IT guy is at the corporations today, and they say, what are things that you are trying to do? Like give us a punch list, and then we'll take all of your data and we'll answer these questions based off of your customer information, your clients, your whatever your government contracts may be. They can do all of that, and
So
they do
high
it.
level business consulting that's actually using AI.
Yes, which is like a viable product, and I'm not hating on that at all. But the concerning aspect is like they are making life and death decisions on battlefields with that same technology, and there's no oversight, and no one seems to care. There's no debate about it. It's just like people are literally dying because a robot said so. Like, and there's no human being that even has to greenlight that, and that's fucking super, super scary. Now, add to this the fact that in America, that same technology is being used to monitor protests, of course. It's being used to go after J6ers. It's being used to go after, oppositional protests to the ICE raids and things like that in LA right now. It's also being utilized to hunt down and deport illegal immigrants, which you're not going to get any right-wingers upset about that. But I'm just saying, like, are we ready to have that technology being used against us? Because it is. It's happening right now already. And there's been no public debate or conversation about it. And in fact, in the big, beautiful bill, which this just got changed literally today, but until today, there was a plan for a 10-year freeze where it would be illegal for any state to put a regulation on the advancement of artificial intelligence.
Which is wild, because then you just federally mandated basically that the federal government can use artificial intelligence in any state to monitor people's activities.
And the state cannot fight back. That was in the big, beautiful bill until today. Apparently, allegedly, it got taken out. I hope that's true. So I'm just saying.
Marjorie Taylor Greene spoke out against that, if I remember correctly. Yeah.
Heroically, and I'm very appreciative of it. So, but the truth is, like, you're probably not going to get most states to fight it anyways. And this technology is not just coming; it is here. And I feel like people are really asleep at the wheel. Like they don't, this is all, I mean, it's kind of complex, but like I did a 37-minute episode breaking it down. So it's not like so complex that you can't wrap your head around it. It's just freaky, man. Like, I don't know if you ever watched Black Mirror, but like we're living in it.
I don't know. I assume you probably watched the debate Dave did. I think it was with Alex Norwash about illegal immigration.
Yeah.
And, I mean, Dave did a great job with it. And I actually thought Alex had some very interesting talking points. I think he kind of fell into the libertarian non-practical trap, which is like, if you're going to clean up, basically that people coming to this country, if they're just here and that's, you got a completely open border. So then, I mean, unless you're figuring out basically a freedom of association so that my company doesn't just have to hire them if I don't want to hire them,
right,
or that they're not just instantly getting social benefits. To me, you have to clean up that side of the equation first. And then, yeah, there's a lot more room for a libertarian potential, just, free and open border. But
well, that just piggyback off that. This is exactly the argument that I made when I shifted and I became a border hawk, is that what I recognize is that you're not going to be allowed to have those voluntary agreements because the domestic population is going to rise up in absolute horror out of the millions of illegals that are flooding their states and cities and towns. And And as a consequence of that, because that's what the Biden administration did, which is exactly what Alex wants. He wants there to be millions of people that come in, right? Now you have a law in the state of Tennessee that says that it is a felony to rent a home to an illegal immigrant. So now the homeowner does not have the right to voluntarily transact with this person, even though it's a voluntary transaction. And in fact, they can be put in jail for it. So like this is where like the rubber meets the road when it comes to open borders arguments that I just think they are so blind to. Like Alex's answer to me when I tell him this would just be like, well, that shouldn't be a law. It's like, all right, yeah, but it is, dude. like this is where we're at now, is that American citizens are going to go to prison if they rent their house voluntarily to an illegal immigrant. And that's the world, that's a response to your world.
And also, almost, I mean, I guess it's the same thing if with a fake ID, which I used all of high school, but that then puts you in the role of having to actually now somewhat be an enforcement agent of finding out if the person you're trying to rent to is an American citizen,
right,
where, you know, they might have talked English, and you wouldn't have otherwise, I guess. I've never rented, so maybe people typically do background checks and would be making, anyways.
But you can get a driver's license though in a lot of states without being an American citizen. So like from a landlord's perspective, yeah, if they speak English decently, you'd probably be like, well, you got a ID, you speak English, you're probably a citizen, but maybe he's not.
But speaking to one of Alex's points was that all of the laws that exist to prevent illegal immigration could potentially then be used against United States citizens. And so it creates an apparatus by which we are essentially expanding the power of the state and the way that it can make enforcement against us.
Totally true. Yep.
Right. So, like, for example, you could have, Real ID might even fall into this, but you could all of a sudden have more businesses not letting you in unless you have your Real ID, which could be a mechanism to try and force more people to self-deport because it's not as easy for them to live within the country. But then that would also restrict our own freedoms because that makes us need to basically declare who we are in more often. And the extension of that would be if the Palantir technology was used against illegal immigrants, you'd have a lot of people going, oh, this is excellent. We're embracing AI technology to figure out who is in the country illegally. And they're illegal immigrants. They don't have the same rights as I do. So go ahead and use that technology on them. But I think we can all acknowledge that it's naive to think that if we cultivated this technology, we implemented, for example, facial recognition software across the entire country in every city to isolate illegal immigrants, just wait till a new Democrat comes in and they try a new COVID something and decide, oh, we already have this technology up. Exactly. We can very easily figure out who's not in our vaccine database or who's in our offensive comments online database, who falls into our domestic terrorism title or social credit scores. So you're definitely have an avenue for creating a very severe freedom restriction apparatus.
Yes, but again, I would argue that this isn't exactly why you shouldn't have open borders, because the domestic population is eventually going to rise up and say, I don't want these invading hordes. So they're going to say, get rid of them by any means necessary. And the state's going to go, okay, here comes Palantir.
All right. Before I turn to the dumbasses in my chat for some comments, is there anything else on the Palantir topic that you would like to cover? And if not, we can go to some comments and see what the people in the chat think.
I covered most of it. I would just say that, like, Palantir, and even though I talked about Gaza, it's also being used, the kill chain is also being used in the Ukraine war. So this is a war-fighting company, a war-fighting technological platform. So the fact that it's being used in private businesses across the country is really secondary to my concerns. Like, I don't really care about what it gets used for when it comes to, private businesses. But I'm very concerned about it being used on the battlefield, and the advent of AI paired with drone technology, paired with biowarfare, paired with, nanobots and nanotechnology. Like, I'm just telling you, like, we're headed to, Terminator 2 on steroids. Like, it's going to be wild. It's going to be really, really wild. And I just feel like we're not having enough of a open conversation about, like, what's happening, how quickly rather, this is evolving. And it's evolving so rapidly, and
And
nobody's. It's not really on people's radar.
and close to zero media coverage outside of just what I see on Twitter of how come you guys aren't talking about Palantir.
Exactly. Well, and if you do get any media coverage, I shit you not, because I've been doing all this research on it. It's all about the stock price. That's all. Like if you look up Palantir and you try and find it on CNBC or whatever, it's just like buy. This company's great. It's fucking, it's the cutting edge of AI and blah blah blah. Very rarely do they talk about like, oh, thousands of innocent people are being killed with this technology, like right now.
Right.
So that's the main thing I want people to take away from it is like, just because this technology is going to be used for something you want, I'm not even saying you, but I'm just saying like the broad you, say it's because it's going to be used to crack down on Antifa. It's going to be used to crack down and deport illegal immigrants. Like, you need to be really on guard for how this is going to be used against the rest of us, because it's coming.
All right, so before I take a couple comments from the chat, once again, porchtour.com. Got a big weekend of Texas and Louisiana freedom porching. Come hang out. No Palantir will be tracking you there. I hope. I don't think they are. Clint, why don't you plug all the other places that people can follow you?
At Liberty Lockdown on X. If you want to support my work, subscribe there. I'll follow you back. Liberty Lockdown is the show. YouTube, Spotify, Rumble, Apple Podcasts. Get it while it's hot. New episode dropping noon tomorrow. Me and Robbie going deep on the Elon Massey, Trump kerfuffle, and a bunch of other stuff. So check it out.
All right, so let's take a couple comments. First is just humorously, one person was like, I'll just read it. It's just so nice for Robbie to allow a beginning podcaster on and give him some shine. Maybe one day Clint will get known. He seems pretty smart. Clint has a larger podcast and Twitter following than I do, but thank you.
I think it was facetious.
Tyrannus Chris letting me know that I'm a dumbass but funny. I'll take it.
I think you're actually really smart. You're just not funny at all.
Oh, there you go. You're going the other way on it. Dilemmas. What the fuck? Robbie and Clintina doing a live? I know, it's a good time. Dilemma's saying he needs a towel. I guess he's masturbating. I'd like clarification of which one of the two of us gets you more excited. Swanton, can you believe this guy? Tyrannosaurus, whatever, letting us know that he's heard of the stock. All right, here's a question for you. Dilemma's 85. Why does America think that they are the best, yet they are always the ones that invent this kind of shit?
Well, the reason that we think we're the best is because we kill the most people because we got the best technology. So,
all right. And then Sean Butt, what are your thoughts on the Gaza ceasefire?
I mean, like, will it hold? That's the only question that anybody ought to have about it. It's like, sure, it's good, but there's been so many ceasefires over the past 2 years, or 20 months rather, and there's been so many violations of the ceasefire. I don't take any of it seriously. I think that there's a real argument to be had that the whole reason that, Israel was pushing for the ceasefire with Iran so aggressively is because all of their missiles for their Iron Dome or whatever were depleted, and they're like, we're going to get annihilated if we can't continue to knock down these barrages. So they were begging for time, and I think that's the same thing with Gaza. Is like, oftentimes when I hear about a ceasefire, even though that's what I want there to be peace, I don't, until there's like 6 months or a year of peace, I'm not going to celebrate anything.
All right. Dilemma's coming through with a clarification of I use Robbie to get hard and use Clint for the vinegar stroke. I'm not familiar with the terminology of vinegar stroke. Are you? I don't know what he's talking about there.
Yeah, it's smelling vinegar, so it's like it's like when you're finishing.
Okay.
So you get him going, and then I finish him off.
And you're the finisher. All right, yeah. I'm okay with that. All right, let's call it there. Thank you for hanging out.
I shouldn't have done that vinegar strokes face, because that's going to come back to bite me.
That'll be the new intro for. All right, it's been a pleasure, everybody. Thank you for hanging out. Once again, porchtour.com and Houston at the Secret Group. You can find that on their website. Ending the stream. You guys can talk.